like to welcome all of you to the program. And as you can see, youth are involved in the project from the get-go. And I appreciate the scouts. Let them know that we knew that we're here. Before we begin our program, let us have a moment of silence for those affected by recent tornadoes and send a thanks to the active duty service member, reservists, and National Guard members who are working in the stricken areas. Thank you. One of the purposes of this park is to honor and thank veterans, some of whom are here today. In my experience of talking to individuals about the project, I have discovered confusion over the word veterans. One does not have to have fought in a war to be a veteran. A veteran is someone who raised his or her hand to serve the United States of America. This includes National Guard, Reserve, and also active duty personnel. Would anyone who served in World War II please stand to be recognized? Next, would all active duty personnel please join them to be recognized? And please walk forward if you're standing so we know you're active duty. Finally, would all veterans who have served please stand to be recognized? Thank you. If there are any Gold Star mothers, fathers, spouses, or children in the audience, would you please stand? Veterans are the backbone of freedoms guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. When called, Kentuckian veterans are in the forefront of those volunteering to serve their nation. For example, Kentucky saw more battle casualties in War of 1812 than all of the other states combined. We must never forget the sacrifices that veterans have made for their country, some with their lives. We must continually look for ways to recognize each and every one of them and to express our appreciation to them. The reminders of their service are important because behind every veteran who served, who was wounded, or who died, are families and friends who have been affected by their military service. During a tour of America after World War I, General Blackjack Pershing came to Louisville to refresh our memory of those who served during the Great War. It is not only vital but critical that today's youth learn from our military sacrifices because more and more often they are not having their memories refreshed. There is a national trend for social history to replace military history in our schools. Now, this could not be more timely what I'm getting ready to say. I just received an email today. There was a family who was visiting in Washington, D.C. The monuments, they went to, two of them were students from our middle schools were just a few weeks ago. If there are any middle school students from South Oda Middle School who are up in Washington on that field trip, would you please stand? Thank you. These students were recognized by this family. I was going to read it, but I couldn't do it. But I'm going to mention to you, actually, Superintendent Wells, we were going to work on this together, but didn't work out because it was a spur of the moment. These students were recognized by this family for the courtesy that they showed veterans and asking questions and things like that. I can't go any further, but it really reflected well upon these students and our school, middle school, and our school system. Textbooks are now even being produced that rewrite the brave deeds of our military, many times resulting in military history being presented in a negative light or totally eliminated. Veterans Memorial Park of Kentucky has a dual mission: to recognize those who served, especially those who gave their lives in military service, and to educate the community with a focus on youth and military history. It is with great appreciation that the Oldham County Schools offer this location to serve as a place where students will have their memories of military history refreshed. Many youth have already been involved in this endeavor. For his Eagle Scout project, Jeremiah Doris of Troop 144 built an outdoor classroom, which is right over the hill over there. And over here, you'll see this tree by Major Wakefield. It's from it's a Liberty tree from the Liberty Tree Society. If you remember Johnny Tremaine, some of us do, on Walt Disney and the Sons of Liberty, that organization was formed based on that. And it was donated to our school system, and it's being watered by the South Oldham Middle School Beta Club. Also, these trees that surround us were planted by Theodore Klein. He planted the trees over in Udale Gardens. And actually, this area has been designated as a tree museum. An American Heritage Girl Troop will be identifying these trees as a service project. South Oldham and South Oldham Middle School, South Oldham High School and Middle School students will be researching information that will be utilized in the park markers. Youth participation is an example why the park will be one of the most unique veterans parks in the United States, and why the principals at South Oldham High School and middle schools, Superintendent Wells, and the Board of Education deserve not only our thanks, but recognition for making this project possible. Thank you to all of those. I will close with a quote from one of our board members, Kentucky Air National Guard Stephen Bullard. Didn't know I was going to say this. He said at a recent Veterans Day program, "To be a veteran is to be part of a special fraternity. We've been through basic training, we've worn the uniform, we've proven our willingness to sacrifice, and if need be, to lay down our lives for our nation and freedom. To be a veteran is to wear a badge of courage." Thank you for that quote.
Good afternoon, everyone. Boy, the Lord has blessed us today to give us His hold, not rain on us, so we've been very fortunate, Don. We all have. Today we have the great honor of hosting one of America's greatest heroes. Chief Warrant Officer 4 Herschel Woody Williams tried to join the U.S. military shortly after the beginning of the Second World War. Believe it or not, they turned him down. He was too short. They had a 5'8" height restriction. However, this conflict grew into the greatest war that was ever fought, expanding across the world with tens of millions of deaths from combat, disease, and the terror of extermination tactics. The world had never seen anything like this, and hopefully never will again. Men like Woody Williams were badly needed on our front lines. Woody was finally permitted to join in May 1943. He enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. He wound up in a tank training battalion where they trained him as a demolition man and also in the use of flamethrowers. He headed to the Pacific Theater in December of 1943, staging first at New Caledonia and then over to Guadalcanal. From there, he went to Guam, where he saw significant combat action in the summer of 1944. Woody's date with destiny came on February 23rd, 1945. 2 days after landing at Iwo Jima, in the midst of the most vicious battle of that war, battling tens of thousands of Japanese soldiers who fought to the death. And interestingly, the same day as the famous flag raising at Mount Suribachi, the photographs that is now the icon of the United States Marine Corps. Woody didn't see it, by the way. Corporal Woody Williams found his unit's tanks pinned down while going up against a network of reinforced concrete pillboxes, buried mines, and black volcanic sands. Corporal Williams went forward alone against devastating machine gun fire, armed with a 70-pound flamethrower. Covered by only 4 riflemen, he fought for 4 hours under terrific enemy fire and repeatedly returned to his own lines to prepare demolition charges and obtain service flamethrowers. He returned to the front, frequently circling to the rear of hostile enemy emplacements to wipe out one position after another. At one point, he charged enemy riflemen who attacked him with bayonets, and he destroyed them with a burst from his flamethrower. Woody would stay on at Iwo Jima fighting for another 4.5 weeks. He was wounded on March 6, earning the Purple Heart. In October of 1945, he was presented the Congressional Medal of Honor, our nation's most prestigious award by President Harry Truman at the White House. Woody would spend the next 24 years in and out of military service with the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve, reaching the rank of Chief Warrant Officer and serving as commander of the 25th Infantry Company in Huntington, West Virginia. He takes special pride in having served as a chaplain of the Congressional Medal of Honor Society for 35 years. On a personal note, this is your rare chance to meet an American icon, one of our all-time greatest military heroes. Woody is renowned throughout the Marine Corps as one of their most eloquent spokesmen, and he's a highly sought-after mentor for young Marines, and I've seen him in action. He's very good. He represents the Congressional Medal of Honor with grace, dignity, and humility, and he truly embraces the role of representing what is great about our nation to everybody he meets. We are all truly honored by his presence here today. Please welcome my American hero, Congressional Medal of Honor recipient Woody Williams.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Don mentioned in his presentation email. Imagine a World War II guy back in 1945 saying email, but we did say V-mail. We had a V-mail, and it was an expedited piece of correspondence that if you wrote your mother, and few of us wrote enough or often enough, it got priority because it was considered a V-mail, and it was actually a photo. I don't know how they did that then, but it was actually a photo of what you wrote. My mother saved those for us. Everything that we wrote was censored. A censoring officer, and usually they gave that to a second lieutenant. It was a dirty duty. He didn't like it, nobody else liked it. You had to read everybody's letter. How many times you said, I love you in a letter? Or, you owe me $10 and you never did pay me. But he had to read all of that. And if you said something you shouldn't have said, then he would, as we use the term today, he would redact it. That doesn't mean a thing in the world to me. But what he'd do is mark it out. That's what we said. And my censoring officer happened to like to use a single-edged razor blade, so that if you said something in your letter that you should not have said, even what type of training you were doing, or anything that might help the Japanese, he would take his little single-edged razor blade and cut a hole in your letter. Some of my letters had holes in them when they got home. Ladies and gentlemen, veterans and families, I'm thankful to be a part of this dedication. Our history is important, certainly to those who follow in our footsteps. It's been said that if we do not learn from our history, we have a tendency to repeat it. True Americans want to be involved in the future of America. You would not be here if you did not have that feeling. We're living, I believe, in perilous times. Occasions such as this are important to keep reminding us of the sacrifices that have been made to keep us a free people. Veterans who gave their lives and suffered untold injuries, and Gold Star families who gave part of themselves, gave that for our freedom. To all of those who worked so hard to make this day possible, You know, we owe them an appreciation and a round of applause. Would you join me? They don't happen without effort. But there will always be those Americans who are willing to go beyond the ordinary. They've existed in our armed forces and even in civil life. It happens in our civil life as it does in our armed forces. A fireman rushes into a house to rescue somebody he never heard tell of before. A policeman faces an individual with a weapon in his hand. It happens in civil life. On February the 11th, the Medal of Honor was presented to Clinton Rumusha from Minot, North Dakota. He was a staff sergeant in Afghanistan, and his base was being attacked by 100 Taliban. His buddies were being killed and wounded, and he took over. He became a one-man army. He organized his fellow soldiers, and as their leader, rescued wounded men and held off the Taliban and kept the base from being overrun. He later said, 400 Taliban against 52 American soldiers just doesn't seem fair to the Taliban. And it wasn't. He said it was our home, and they simply couldn't have it. Then there was a woman who failed to follow what a woman usually does. I love them all. She became a doctor, and she went to war. She treated both the North and the South. She was the only woman to ever receive the Medal of Honor. Then years later, in 1917, she was declared not eligible. And they rescinded it. But she continued to wear the medal anyway until the date she died. Then in 1977, the President of the United States declared her eligible again, and her medal was restored. You can't whip women, just give up. Her name was Mary Edwards Walker. And during her time, she was in prison for 4 months. She often dressed like a man and concealed herself, and as a result, she was arrested several times for impersonating a man. Imagine that today. What a surprise. During her years, she suffered more grief. But that did not deter her from caring for the patriots of both the North and the South. A war that cost us 600,000. In our America today, we need a lot more Dr. Edwards, Dr. Walker, and those who are willing to say to those who would do us harm, our freedom is one of the most important and precious possessions that we have. And it must be protected at all costs. And those we honor here today have said and continue to say, you may take my life, but you cannot take my freedom. Some of us, not many, but some of us, and the World War II guy in the rear, we can remember the days of Pearl Harbor. We had many warnings about Pearl Harbor, but we failed to listen. Today, this old country boy believes we are receiving warnings. But we need to ask ourselves, are we listening? Many places, prayer is forbidden. Our youth, for the most part, have lost respect for our flag. Many do not have to put their hand over their heart or even stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. They do not have to stand or take part when the national anthem is played. We are failing to teach our youth that loving America is one of the most important things we can do as a society. We all know that the flag is the only symbol around which we as a people can join. There is no other without prejudice. It is that flag. Many of our basic freedoms are being eroded or lost. And all America needs to ask, are we headed for another Pearl Harbor? Or are we listening? If you heard the morning news, England is facing a terrible problem worse than ours. But wait, if we don't listen. But let me hasten to say that there is no place on earth like America. And when there is a tragedy in America, such as 9/11, Boston bombing, or the terrible tragedy of Oklahoma, Moore, Oklahoma, America comes together as one. And we need to do that in our country today. Instead of fussing with each other, we need to come together as one America. In spite of all of our warts and faults, and we have them, in spite of the many problems that needs to be solved, we are still the most blessed people on earth. There was a poem by an unknown author who says it much better than I can. I close with this poem. I never made a fortune, and it's probably too late now. But I don't worry about that much. I'm happy anyhow. And as I go along life's way, I'm reaping better than I sowed. I'm drinking from my saucer 'cause my cup has overflowed. Haven't got a lot of riches, and sometimes the going's tough. But I've got loving ones around me, and that makes me rich enough. I thank God for His blessings and the mercies that He's bestowed. I'm drinking from my saucer 'cause my cup has overflowed. I remember times when things went wrong and my faith wore somewhat thin. But all at once the dark clouds parted and the sun peep through a gap. So, Lord, help me not to gripe about the tough rows that I've hoed. I'm drinking from my saucer because my cup has overflowed. If God gives me the strength and courage when the way grows steep and rough, I'll not ask for other blessings. I'm already blessed enough. And may I never be too busy. Can I say that again? May I never be too busy to help others with their loads. Then I'll keep drinking from my saucer because my cup has overflowed. God bless each person here, and God bless America.
I'd like to recognize the Patriot Guard riders. Some of you may not have seen them before. They will show up if there's a funeral of a service member and a veteran, an active duty or a veteran, and we're honored to have, they were his honor guard, but also they're also helping set up our program here by surrounding us with the flags. Thank you all.
We're lucky to have had a beautiful day so far, so let's keep this good luck going. At this time, we are going to go ahead and get to the heart of the matter. And grab yourself a shovel and let's turn over some dirt. I tell you what, I was only a staff sergeant, but I know how to give a command. Dig away, push it in. The Veterans Memorial Park is grateful for the partnership that has been established with the Oldham County School System. How fitting it is that an educational park that honors military history and personnel should be located between two of our outstanding schools. There's a great deal of work to be done to see this project through to completion. With your support and the good blessings of the Lord, we shall be successful. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. The board thanks you for taking time from your busy schedule to join us today. Your attendance speaks volumes about the soul and the character of our community. You can always tell when there's a last-minute addition. Fran Scott, would you step forward, please? I've known Fran for some time and have worked with him on extensive projects, but one thing I'll tell you about Fran Scott is that he gives himself entirely to our community. There is so much that he has contributed in a way of his time. It's not something he ever sends a bill out for as well. And he stepped forward early in this process and came up with an incredible design for this very, very unique park. So Fran, the board has decided that you're entitled to a little something. We have commemorative coins that represent supporters of this park, but we have a very special coin that is gold. And we're so pleased to present Fran a presentation case with inside of it is a gold coin that depicts the park emblem. And Fran, we appreciate you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Feel free to say a word if you want.
I want to thank Jim and Don particularly and the entire team that worked on this. I hope you do take a moment to look at the design. I was inspired on this design because I was a terrible history student. I could never put sequences together because I guess the way they were presented, they weren't chronological. So I didn't know if the Spanish-American War was before or after the Civil War. So the thought occurred to me that since the part of the mission was educational, that maybe we ought to put this thing together in some sort of a timeline. starting with 1776 and going through history, so that we created a pathway that you can walk. And every 3 feet represents 1 year. And so you can chronologically put some things in sequence, and as you walk along the path, you'll be able to see markers that give evidence of the conflicts that we've had, and also those that we've lost. And so it kind of puts it in order, and I'm dying to walk the path because I still haven't put everything together. So, but thank you very much. I hope this park does serve to fulfill its purpose, and thank you so much.